Have you ever finished a book, forgotten literally everything that happens, and then the sequel is supposed to drop like tomorrow?
Yes, same. And that's exactly why we're here today.
And today we're actually testing something new, our first ever BookTok Tested episode.
If you're new here, BookTok Tested is where we take the most hyped book from BookTok and put them to the test to see if they actually live up to the hype or who we'd recommend them to.
And we're kicking it off with Quicksilver by Callie Hart because Brimstone is about to drop. And honestly, we needed a refresher ourselves and we needed to remember if we actually liked it or not.
And if you haven't read it yet or you just want to know if it's worth picking up, no worries. You can skip ahead where we will be done with our recap and you can check out our BookTok Tested review.
Otherwise, stick around. We're diving into a full recap of Quicksilver.
Woo! Let's get started, Cass. We got to jump right in. So
Let's do it.
At the beginning of this humongous book, we're introduced to Sarah Swain, a young woman that's living in the 3rd district of Zilvarin. The 3rd district is like the 13th district of Hunger Games. It's not where you want to be. It's where the most impoverished live. They're starving.
It's where dreams go to die.
Yes. This kingdom, Zilvarin, is ruled by Queen Madra, who is like the classic evil queen, hoarding all of the wealth and food and water to herself and not sharing it with her people. Sarah lives here, and both of her parents have passed away, and she is the sole provider for her younger brother Hayden, and she keeps them alive by stealing, bartering, fighting, doing whatever she has to do to survive in this barren wasteland. She's definitely got like main FMC energy. She knows how to fight. She's got an attitude. She's sassy, and she will do anything to protect her family.
Yep.
So the story kind of kicks off like with this one incident. So she is like grabbed onto by this guard of the crazy queen. And I think it was like for something small, like minor. And she like knows that her way out of this is to tell him that she's from the 3rd because the 3rd are known for carrying like diseases that other people don't want to catch. So she's like, I'm from the 3rd. And he's like, oh my God, ew, gross. And like throws his hand down and also throws off this like jeweled glove he's wearing. That's called a gauntlet. And she's like, this gauntlet could literally feed my family for the rest of their lives. And so I am 100% taking this.
Her instincts are interesting, I will say.
Yeah. She's a fighter. She's scrappy.
She's a fighter.
So she grabs this thing and runs. And obviously, like, all of the guards run after her as well because they're like, you can't take things that belong to the queen. She somehow gets away, which is very impressive.
She is like a little, like, slithery snake. Like, I swear, she's just, like, slippery.
She decides to take the gauntlet to, like, a family friend called Elroy, who is, like, a friend of her mother's who's passed away. And he is like the glass blower for the district. So he has a forge that can melt this metal down. So he's like, hell no, Saris, I am not taking this. We are going to get in so much trouble. You're literally going to get everybody in this district killed. Like, move on. So then she's like, I gotta go to Carrion, my childhood friend that is also like running like the underground systems of this area, like doing gambling rings, like anything bad he's associated with. And he's like, this is trouble, Saris, but at least you can like drop it off at my warehouse. And she's like, okay, fine. But in the meantime, she looks over and her little twerpy brother Hayden is in this pub with them. And he is clearly in trouble. He's gambled all of their water rations away for the day. And she's like, I'm going to have to get you out of something again, throws the gauntlet at him, and then proceeds to, like, argue with Carrion about the debt or whatever. Obviously, Hayden turns and runs with the gauntlet for what reason, we don't know. But he's missing. Saris has to chase him down. She finds him surrounded by the queen's guards, and he is about to be either tortured, beheaded, put to death, put to prison.
Toast.
And Saris is like, obviously, this is my brother. I'm going to take the fall for him. And she says, hey, guards, that's actually my gauntlet.
Hey, guards.
So she gets dragged away to Queen Madra's prison. And this prison is known for, like, death incarnate. So she's, like, already knowing she's not going to make it out alive. So she has, like, nothing to lose. So she gets down there and this guard is like actually kind of being nice to her and like starts giving her like water and like kind of listening to her story a little bit. But then he's like, nice to know you, still have to take you to go see this crazy queen. So they go to meet Queen Madra, and she is no good and is also like kind of insane. And I think she is like harassing Sarah's to try to figure out like why she's so strong and why she's so scrappy. And she keeps
Yeah.
mentioning that she thinks she must be have been trained by the Fae. And Sarah's is like, you crazy ass woman, what are you talking about? The Fae do not exist. They're literally a childhood tale.
Literally hiding under the bed monsters to
Yeah.
Sarah's.
So she's like, eventually is like, okay, this girl has no idea what I'm talking about. Like, just kill her. And on her way out, she's like, I'm also gonna like kill everybody in your district and your little brother. So sucks to suck.
It all comes back to the twerpy brother.
And so she leaves her with the guard, and the guard is like, I'm gonna take you to this room. He opens this like heavy lead door. And they go in this room, and there's a giant pool with like a stick sticking out of it. And he's like, this is the end of you. I'm sorry. And he like goes to stab her. And her mind like somehow pushes his dagger back. And she's like, whoa, what's going on? And then the dagger turns into liquid metal and starts fighting the guard. At this point in time, I'm like, what the heck is going on?
That was wild. What was wild is that, like, so he fully, like, stabs her with his sword. Like, she has a sword jutting out of her back at this point. Like, it's, like, run through her.
So then, as she's also, like, injured and dying herself, she thinks to grab the stick that's jutting out of, like, the giant pool.
Which is shocking because she literally has, like, her guts spilling out of her body at this point.
But this is where I think she was just like, I have nothing to lose.
Totally. But I just am perpetually shocked by romantasy books where, like, someone is quite literally, like, one breath from death. And then they have this, like, brilliant idea. They're like, oh, let me go grab that sword. Like, my stomach's literally on the ground. But, like, let me go do that.
Yeah.
What?
Like, if this was happening to any of us in real life, we would 100% be, like, paralyzed with pain.
I'd be like, goodbye, cruel world. I'm going to lay here on the cold ground in the fetal position, trying to hold my bowels inside of my body. And that would be my only thought. So she just like grabs the sword. The pool around her starts to move. Like before this, it was like stiff, stale, and it starts to move around her like this like silvery, watery substance. And when she pulls out the sword, this man pops out of this pool, and she's like, "Who are you?" And she's like, "Oh, this must be death coming to claim me."
Right. Like the Grim Reaper or something. So is the Death Incarnate the one that kills the guard?
Yes.
Okay.
It was the Death Man.
And so then the deaf man also like sees the sword in her hand and like was going to kill her, but then like hesitates. And instead is like, puts like this little necklace on her and is like, I'm taking you with me. And then she passes out.
Yep. Then she's done so. Finally. I'm like, oh my God. You have the strength of literally 50 oxes. And she's like my size. I would have been gone 10 minutes ago.
So she like comes to and she's like in this room and hears a like female voice and she looks at the female and the female has pointed ears and she's like, holy shit, that was actually not a hallucination. The Fae are real. And so woo! So she's like starts asking this woman questions. She's like, I'm Everlane. You are in King Belicon's palace. You have been healed by a healer, but you have pulled out a sword that has not been removed for ages, and the king has questions, and so he's absolutely going to question you anytime now.
That's never a good thing. We don't want the king questioning us.
While they're waiting to meet the king, a strong, large Fae man named Renfis comes in and he's like, oh my God, I have the wild beast of a man that brought her here in another room and he is not okay. I'm going to need that necklace back that he put on Sarah's neck anytime now. So she gets put in front of the king and it's very like trial, like romantasy trial. Like here's the crazy king and all of his people are around him and like kind of like egging him on when we all know that he's crazy. And go ahead.
And he's the king of a realm called Yavelia. Like this is what Everlane introduces Sarah's to because she's like, where the hell am I? But he resides at the Winter Palace. There are like seasonal courts, and he specifically resides in the Winter Court.
Thank you for adding that in. So
You're
she
welcome.
gets so she gets dragged in front of this king, and he's like, a human has never been able to touch this sword. Like, you must be part fae or like something, or like, why do you have this power where you can like harness metal and quicksilver? We've never seen this before. So you're gonna stay here and we're gonna figure out how you're able to do this. And you can either like comply or refuse. And if you refuse, this is not gonna be fun for you. So I suggest you comply.
So you're complying.
Yeah. And she's like, so then out gets dragged the wild dog that we learn his name is Kingfisher. And we learn
Ooh.
that he somehow like betrayed the crown and he is like exiled for some war crimes and he is not supposed to be back here and the king is not happy about it. So
And he's definitely not supposed to be like foaming at the mouth, like chomping his mouth at everyone.
He's like, let's just like put him to death. And Everlane is like making eyes at this like old woman in the crowd. And she's like, you better tell him to stop. So this old aged oracle of a woman comes out of the crowd and is like, King, 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 we are not going to kill him. He is part of a prophecy. I think she's making it up.
She might be. She put on a very impressive performance if she was.
And then Renfis comes forward and is like, I am the leader of these armies, and I think that punishment for Kingfisher should be he should have to go back to the front and fight because we're losing this battle. He's powerful. He can help us win. And if he doesn't, he's going to die anyways. So what do you have to lose?
Yeah. A compelling argument.
Yeah. And so Renfis is like, but I'm going to need that necklace back again. And so the king is like, yeah, sure, here it is. And he puts it on Kingfisher and it like immediately calms him down. He's no longer a rabid dog. He is actually a human.
Whoa.
Well, a fae.
A fae, but like acts like a human.
Yeah. And the king is like, you will stay, Kingfisher, for 1 week to help Saris figure out how to use the Quicksilver since you're the one that brought her here and you seem to know how to use it as well. But after that, you're going to the battlefield. So they start this little side quest with this little main group of people, Everlane, Renfis, Kingfisher, and Saris. And Everlane's way of helping is she thinks that she needs to like teach Saris like about the Fae customs and the different worlds, like the Winter Palace and what they're comprised of. And Kingfisher's like, we need to go straight to the Quicksilver. Like, we have 1 week. But
Yeah.
Everlane gets her way for a second and they go to the library and they meet this like old wise librarian. And he's immediately like, Saris, you're an alchemist. And she's like, huh, what is that? And they're like, an alchemist. We haven't seen one of these in years.
Yeah, like, okay, just casual mic drop from the random librarian.
So Kingfisher then finally gets his way and takes her to the forge. During all these like library and forge back and forth, we learn a lot of lore. And this is like a lot of world building. So I'm going to give you guys the bullet point facts that you need to know. So we learn that you like can't touch this Quicksilver. Like it's dangerous to touch. And there were pools of it that were portals through the different realms. And at some point, Queen Madra had like paused or frozen these portals so that people could no longer go through them. So in learning this, you're like, how old is Queen Madra? And you also find out that she is immortal. Nobody knows why, which would be good information to know.
It would.
You also learn that the pendant that Kingfisher is wearing is actually like controlling the madness from the Quicksilver inside of him because what was it, Cass? When he was like a kid, he fell into one of the pools.
Yeah, he entered one of the pools, and normally when you were entering these pools, you had to be guarded by some sort of like Quicksilver relic that had like some sort of magic in it, essentially, to like stave off some of the effects of the Quicksilver, and he basically went into the pool unguarded.
And so then he got his little necklace pendant to keep him protected and keep the Quicksilver in control. We also learned that Fisher and Everlane are half siblings. So,
Wow.
yeah, Everlane and Kingfisher have the same mom, and Everlane's dad is King Bellicon. And we learned that King Bellicon doesn't actually like Kingfisher. He thinks that he's kind of like this bastard son type person to him and like has never looked at him as part of the family.
He blames him for, like, everything. He blames him for his late wife dying, who is Kingfisher's mom. He blames him for the fact that the portals were sealed because apparently right before the portals were sealed, the king had sent Fisher's dad into Zilvarin, and then the portals sealed, like, pretty closely after that, and so Kingfisher is basically just, like, the bane of Belacon's existence.
Yeah. And we also learn that these fae have fangs because, like, back in the day, they had some sort of curse put over them and they were offered this, like, potion to cure them. And they all took it, but the fangs stayed. Like, when I'm telling you, the lore is deep. And I have to give it
Oof.
to Callie for, like, building out the entire, like, last 1,500 years of history for this book. But it was a lot to take in when I was still confused about anything that's happening right now.
That's fair.
And so we also get a key moment in this book, which is the introduction of Ceres's little pet name. So Kingfisher decides he is going to call her Osha, which is like a shortened word for this very fragile butterfly that I think like meets its death very easily.
Yes, and so basically she's like, "You're calling me a weak bitch," when I literally survived in that pool with no organs in my body for, like, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He doesn't know. And so he's like, we gotta get to work. And he shoves this metal in her hand that like immediately burns her. It's the Quicksilver. It starts whispering voices to her and it starts saying, Anarath more, Anarath more. And you're again like, am I hallucinating? Nobody ever
What
explains.
is this fever dream that I'm in?
Nobody ever explains. Anyways, this whole like forge library back and forth like happens for quite a few chapters, but like the gist of it is she's like learning about the realm. Kingfisher is like trying to teach her how to forge this Quicksilver. She's not doing a great job. And all of this like kind of culminates in this one day where she's like asking Kingfisher in the forge, like, how does your necklace like protect you? Like, what is it made out of? Like, I want to like touch it to see if I can sense anything. And of course, he's like shirtless and sweating because the forge is hot and like ripped and just like looking very sexy.
I mean, we also forgot to, fully describe the fact that he is unbelievably attractive. Like, he has,
Yeah.
like, dark, wavy hairs. He has these green jade eyes. Obviously, one of them has the Quicksilver in them, but he's, like, cut. He's a warrior. He has these muscles. He has tattoos all over him.
The MMC starter pack.
Truly tall, dark, and handsome, and broody, and an asshole.
A bad boy. And so
A
he's
bad
over there
attitude.
like being a bad boy and he's like, come touch it then, Ceres. And you're like, shit, this is not gonna be good. And she's like hesitant, but how can you resist? So she goes
You
and
can't.
touches
That's
it.
the answer.
And meanwhile, he's like whispering like dirty things to her. He's essentially like, you know what would happen if I fucked you, Ceres? Do you know what would happen if you begged for this and you begged for that and I had you on your knees? And you're like, holy crap. And
This was the part that reminded me why he's one of my top book boyfriends. I'm like, this man is dirty.
filthy, filthy man. And of course, just like
Yes.
we are, she's falling for it. And so she's
Yeah,
like
she's into it.
essentially like in his lap, like dry humping him. Like they start making out. He's like, this is amazing. So then like eventually he's like, you're literally in my lap. And she's like ice bucket to the face and like separates herself. And she's like, oh my God, what are we doing? Okay. While they're like collecting themselves and in this forge room, she also meets this little creature who is a fox that comes out of the forge named Onyx. And
So cute.
he's very cute and he kind of becomes her little side companion. So
Mhm.
after the hot, steamy makeout session, she's trying to like get some recovery time with Onyx and like center herself. And Kingfisher is like, you wait here. Ren is going to come get you. Please do not move. And she's like, sure thing. We know she's going to move.
That never works out, ever.
And she immediately jumps into action and is like, I learned earlier that there's a Quicksilver pool in the basin of this palace, and I am going to go through it because while I was making out with Kingfisher, I stole the ring relic off of his finger, and he has no idea. And we're
Not
like,
so amateur thief after all.
yeah. So she gets out of this pool pretty easily. Like, it's not as guarded as one would think. And she's, like, getting ready to, like, step into the pool, and Kingfisher shows up in shadows and wind and storm and is like, "What do you think you're doing?" And she's like, "I'm going back to get my brother." And she's like, "It's all fine because I stole this ring from you
Ha
when we
ha
were making
ha.
out." And he's like, "Are you an idiot? I knew you took that ring off my finger. Like, I am literally a fae and you are a human." And he's like,
Oh my
"That
God.
ring is literally a toy. It has no value or relic or Quicksilver to it. Like, you would have died the minute you entered that pool." So he's like, "What do you want?" And she's like, "I just want my brother." And he's like, "I'll cut a deal with you. You agree to listen to me and actually follow my ass and like what I ask you to do, and I will go get your brother." And he's like, "You have to do this in like a blood oath, though. Like, this is going to be binding." And so she's like, "Whatever for my brother." Like, "Okay, I agree." And so they do the blood oath. They like smack hands together, like zip. You feel it tighten or whatever. And he's like, "Okay, I'll be right back." He goes in the pool. He comes back, and she's like, "Who the fuck did you just bring back?" And he's like, "What do
Uh-oh.
you mean?" And she's like, "That's not my brother. That's Carrion Swift."
Oh, dun, dun, dun.
But Saris is obviously, like, upset by this, and she's
Yep.
like, "That's not my brother, you have to go back." He's like, "I can't go back, I'm gonna be driven crazy." But he's like, "Now that you've, like, made me do this, we're definitely in deep shit, and we need to get out of here." So
Yeah.
they, like, get on horseback and are going towards another land. They don't really know where they're going. And it come to find out that they're going towards Kalish, which is where Kingfisher grew up.
Yep.
And this area is protected because Kingfisher's dad had like put wards up to protect it from King Belicon because we don't trust him. We knew he was a bad
Mm-mm.
guy. And
That's
so
right.
they're basically like trying to get through these wards, and then they end up using a shadow gate, which is kind of like a portal of sense, to travel to the palace in Kalish.
Yep. And
Yeah.
Ren is with them at this point, too.
Yes, he met up with them once they passed the gates as well. So she wakes up in Kalish to Carrion Swift, who is alive and well. And she's like, "What the fuck are you doing here? Tell me what's going on at home." And he's like, "Hayden's safe. I got him a job like in another district, and he's kind of like undercover and hiding. The queen literally did nothing to anybody in the third district. Like, she was all talk. Like, poor Saris, life went on without you." And I kind of love that.
Sketchy. I loved that line. I
Yeah.
thought it was so sketchy that the queen did nothing. I'm like, she's a psycho. Why did she not do anything?
So
What's she up to?
earlier in the book, they actually mention that Kingfisher says to Saris, "Don't worry about your district. The queen is not going to do anything because she only has like 2,000 soldiers in her army, and she knows that portal can be open
Mm,
now. So she's not going to kill anybody because she's just going to conscript them all into the army."
she needs foot soldiers.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So she's at Kalish, she's working on her forging. She realizes that she's not very good with her magic. It's a lot of failure. Also, her and Kingfisher are like really picking up this like bickering, flirting, like this very dark
Mhm.
flirting style.
Very dark.
They're like purposely annoying each other, but it's turning them on. They're not quite
Correct.
sure.
Correct. They're really into the rage bait, the two of them.
And one night at dinner, they're like doing their little bickering, arguing, and busts through the window these 4 giant fae monsters that like very grotesque, described as looking half dead. And Saris is like, "What the fuck? Who is this?" And Kingfisher's like, "They're feeders. They're coming from our main enemy, Sanis to Sereth, and they like can only be killed by silver." And so he's like fighting them off. When he cuts them up, like maggots are like falling out of them. But like
Eh.
it's not very hard for him to take them down, but while this is happening, Saris gets like scratched by their fingernails, and I guess they're like poisonous. So he whisks her away to his bedroom and is like, "You are going to be confined to this bed until you feel better, and you will not leave this bed unless you have to pee." And she's like, "Haha, funny." And so he leaves, and she tries to get up, and she literally can't get out of the bed because of the oath.
Oh, God.
I
Second time we used this oath. And I was like, I could not believe she has not tried to literally cut his head off at this point.
At this moment, I was like, wait a minute. Like, why was this our top boyfriend?
The other thing that I remembered rereading is that she actually has to ask 4,000 questions before she'll say yes to anything. And I'm like, bro,
Yeah, you hate that
this man
trope.
is 1,700 years old. And so it's like, he knows more about this poison than you. Like, he knows what's happening with your body. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
stay in bed.
But the 5 days in bed is like so intense. Like you would have body sores.
I think that you're right. I hate the trope where we only get the information through the FMCs asking every single question under the sun. Like, every conversation is them just pelting everyone with questions at the wrong time. Like, they're in the middle of battle and the FMC is like, wait, who is that? Explain that to me right now. And it's like, no.
But do you not think that's born from a miscommunication trope that the MMCs are like convinced they have to like withhold so much information to protect
Yeah, to
her?
like protect them. I also hate the miscommunication trope for that reason.
Yeah.
Like, why is that a thing? I hate that in real life. I don't want that in my romantasy books.
So we do learn a little bit more about the miscommunication trope next, because once she's healed and can get out of bed, she like a shadow gate opens and she's like, I guess I'm supposed to walk through this. And she goes through it and she's at a war camp. And there is like Kingfisher, Renfis, and like his whole army. And Renfis is like, thank God, Kingfisher, you're back. Like, you can start commanding these armies again. And he's like, no, Ren, I'm good. Like, you still take control of it. And you're like, okay, what the fuck is going on? So they're at the camp, and Carrion and Saris are like, we're going to take this opportunity to like learn how to fight. And they're training with Ren. And then Kingfisher comes over and is like, Ren, can you like watch the funny one for a second? I need to take Saris to my tent. And you're like, oh God. So they're like in this tent, like arguing about who fucking knows at this point. Like they're just like, again, like she's asking questions. He refuses to answer. It's a tension. It's a bickering. And
it's
then,
her like asking him to trust her, basically, and like stop compelling her whenever he wants her to do something. Like she's like, have you ever considered just like asking me to do something with a please and like trusting that I'll do it? And then
he's like, I don't trust you because you literally ground your vajee on me to steal my ring and run away. Like, no. But anyways, he like loves this tension and ends up like kissing her. They're doing like a hot, sexy makeout session. And she's like, I'm ready to go all the way. She's like, this making out is not enough. I'm ready to get it on.
She is finally done lying to herself and to all of us. And we are also all done lying to ourselves.
Yeah.
That this is what we want.
Yeah. And so as soon as she says that, he's like spider monkeys like across the room, like Edward Cullen, and is like, we gotta hit the brakes. And so he leaves the tent, and she like is like mystified, and her head's like all over the place because she liked it, but she didn't like it. And she's like, I gotta go find Carrion and Ren. So she finds them in like this tent with other warriors, and she's like sitting there with Carrion watching them argue, and in walks Kingfisher, and this one guard, Danya, like really starts going on the attack on Kingfisher and is like, oh, so now you show your face, like you abandoned us for 100 years. This is not okay. But she like gets herself so worked up that Danya does that she like is actually gonna go run her sword through Kingfisher's neck, and Sarah says like, stop! That is literally my fuck buddy. Like, you cannot kill him. And I don't think that's what she actually said, but what else did she say?
Stop! That's my situationship. I haven't had the chance to take it all the way yet.
And when doing this, she like speaks to the metal of Danya's blade and like splinters it into a million pieces. And Danya is like, holy shit, when did we get an alchemist? Before they can like start unpacking all of that, there's like a battle horn or somebody comes running in and is like, the war is here. And they go to this like iced over river, and Carrion and Saris, of course, can't stay in place. Goes out into battle, and they see like this frozen river. All these giant fae men are trying to break this ice because across the ice are those feeders, like these half-dead like vampire army that is like coming across the river, and they're going to attack. And out walks their leader, Malcolm. And he seems to like still be a vampire, and he's like taunting Kingfisher. He's like, Kingfisher, come out, where are you? Like, I've been waiting to see you since we've been together in exile. And like all the warriors are looking side to side, like, what is he talking about? We have no idea they were together. So they end up breaking the ice. The army falls through. Anyways, Kingfisher's like all like worked up and bothered. I think, like, I don't know what's going on, but he like is like, I need Saris and we need to leave.
We're out. He's like, we'll be back in the morning.
I was like, this man is losing it. So he like takes her back to Kalish, and he's like explaining to her that Malcolm is Fae and also the ruler of these like feeder vampires, because back in the day when they had that whole like blood curse over them, he actually decided not to take the cure because he was like into the immortality and power that it gave him. And so now he's just like this fucked up ruler who's like turning human and lesser fae into these like half dead monsters to use them as an army.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where things heat up.
Here we go.
Kingfisher is like, also like, I want to talk about how you were sharing food with Carrion in the tent when I walked in. Like, why were you guys like sharing food? And they're, again, the bickering, the heavy, hot, and desire is like exploding. And all of a sudden they're like, now is the time, we're going all the way.
It's going down.
So they do it, and it's graphic. There's some like asphyxia going on. Like, there is a lot of like BDSM moments in this scene. And meanwhile, like while they're doing this, there's like exploding starlights and shadows all over the room. And also, the tattoos on Kingfisher's body are like moving around and like coming off of him and like onto her. But, you know, they're having too much fun to question what's going on.
She's distracted. She doesn't need to pay attention to these tattoos.
No. And so he like immediately gets up after and is like, make sure you get some rest. I gotta go.
I know, they're both like wrecked after this. And he like just puts on his pants and he's like, gotta go. Ciao.
Yeah. And I was like, God, why can you two not figure this out? Like, can somebody like speak something out loud?
Please, please.
The next morning, she wakes up and she like sees the tattoo on her from him. It's like a dove or something.
It was like a bird.
Like a bird of some sort. And she's like, I'm gonna tell him. So she goes to like tell him off and like be like, you got to get this tattoo off me. And he's like, hold your horses. We need to get you some birth control. Do you know how babies are made? And she's like, don't you know that in the 3rd district, we're so poor and desolate that they sterilize 70% of women, and I've been sterilized. And some reason that we don't know right now, he's so mad about that. So she like runs off to the forge and finds Carrion, and they start like messing around with the Quicksilver. You learn a few bits about Carrion that like his grandmother believed in the Fae and actually taught him a lot about the Fae. So he's like not shocked by a lot of things that are going on. It shoots over to like this strategy meeting back with Danya and her broken sword and the other warriors. And you learn that like the sword can't just be replaced because it's some sort of like god sword that has Quicksilver imbued into it, because they're all part of this group called like Kingfisher's Wolves. Right? The wolves of Kingfisher?
Yes.
Yeah. And there's like 8 of them, and they're supposed to be like the top warriors or whatever. And so Renfis is like, actually, Saris, you're going to have to learn those powers, and you're going to have to figure this out, because we have about 1 year to win this war, and we're going to need all of those relics, and we're going to need you to fix Danya's sword. So figure this out.
No big deal.
And she's like, I'm going to need a drink. And Lorith, another one of the warriors, is like, let me take you to this tavern. He takes her to a tavern. They have a few drinks, and he just like explains a little bit more about Kingfisher's background, I think to make Saris and ourselves trust him more.
Yes.
And he's basically like, I ended up here because I was on the verge of death. Kingfisher found me, and he actually gave me part of his soul to like let me have a second chance at life. And it's really fucked up, because if I die, he gets like stuck here in limbo and like can't move on to his next life. But don't worry, because I love this man so much. Like if that ever happens to him, I'll off myself. I'm like, okay, Laura, loyal one.
Yeah.
Anyways, they continue to get like super drunk, and Kingfisher like pops up and is like, Saris, I'm taking you home.
She's like, fine, stumbles into bed. And the next day after that, Kingfisher comes back to get her. And she's like, all right, are we going back to the war camp? And he's like, no, we're going somewhere else. So he takes her to this area called Ballard. And so they end up spending the night in this area. And they're like in this old apartment where clearly Fisher and his mom used to stay for whatever purposes. So they sleep there. And in the middle of the night, Saris is woken up. Does this sound familiar? I'm like, why does this happen in every Romantasy book? Like, the man is like having thrashing nightmares in the middle of the night, the only time he's vulnerable in the entire book.
And the woman always is the one to come to comfort them.
She's always got to come and comfort them and probably straddle them to do it. So Sarah ends up going and comforting him, no surprise. And so they fall asleep, and the next morning, of course, they have fresh morning sex.
Oh, sorry, so funny. What happens?
So they get to it, and meanwhile, during this encounter, Saris is obviously very worked up, and she's like, oh, I love this, like, ruin me, bite me. And like the whole time they're having these like interactions where she's like, I think I'm like hearing him in my head, but I can't be sure. Turns out they can mind speak with each other. She doesn't even question it. She's like, whoa, okay, that's interesting, but like, let's finish the job here. So afterwards, Saris realizes that she has more tattoos on her hands, and there's like writing on her hands, like different like types of like runes, fey runes on her hands. She's like, Fisher, what is this? And he's like, don't worry, it's all good. Let me disappear these for you, and you won't even have to think about it. And she's like, okay, cool. So they go back to the camp, and Saris is working in the forge, and she cannot figure out this Quicksilver situation to save her life. And of course, in comes Carrion, and he's like, hey, do you think that you could just ask the Quicksilver to do what you want it to do and like see if that works? And she's like, okay. And so they go down to where she broke apart Danya's sword, and she's like, okay, let me try this out. And she asks the Quicksilver to come out of the wall. And it's like, sure, Sarah Spain, we will do that, but for a price. And she's like, what is the price? And they're like, we want to be made into the best sword that has ever been made. And you need to give us a song along with that sword. And so she's like, yeah, I'll do that. And she's like, but also, do you think that you could put magic back into this sword? Because it used to be a god sword with magic. And they're like, yeah, we'll do that if the bearer of this sword is actually worthy of the magic. And she's like, okay. So she works all night in the forge to make this sword. It's this beautiful sword. Lorith ends up helping her. And once she's done, he's like, ooh, let me see that baby. And he like literally like wisps his hand next to it and ends up bleeding, like cutting himself. And what do you know? The sword is Lorith's as of right at that moment. And so he ends up naming it, he keeps it, and he sings a song to it. And the song is all about Fisher defeating this like huge old drake called anyways. So the Quicksilver ends up keeping the song. No one remembers it other than Saris. And Lorith is now the new proud owner of a beautiful god sword filled with magic. And they're all like, hip, hip, hooray.
This makes sense. Lorith is so loyal, he's willing to give up his life.
Yes. Yeah, he's a great guy. We love Lorith. Fisher takes Saris back to his tent, and she's like bathing. So then after her bath, they end up sleeping together, and Saris wakes up in the middle of the night, and she's like, I have an idea. And she tries to pull the Quicksilver out of Kingfisher's body. And the Quicksilver's like, no, you can't do that. We made a deal, a bargain with Kingfisher when he went into the Quicksilver when he was a boy. And we basically gave him his life in exchange for him giving us a part of his body. So if we go, then Fisher goes. And she's like, well, fuck. Did not see that coming. So after this happens, Ren busts into the tent and he's like, we are under attack and you guys need to get the fuck up. And so they go to fight. And of course, Saris is like, I can't be left behind. You must take me. And so Fisher had promised to not compel her again with his blood nose.
Yeah.
And so he's like, fine, you can come. But you can also take Solace, which is my dad's sword, and make sure that you can protect yourself. So they go to the fight. Saris actually crushes it, shocker. And Red makes it clear that like she can't die because she is Kingfisher's sole reason for being. She's like, what? Catch me up here. So they end up winning this battle. Lorip like uses his magic sword. It like shoves a beam of light into the air. Everyone's like chanting his name, whatever. And so this ends up getting paused by Everlane screaming across the river at Kingfisher, being like, yo, I am standing right here. And so it turns out that she is on the vampire side of the river and she has been captured and
shit.
was thralled by Malcolm. She's a puppet. And so if they want to save her, Malcolm tells them that Fisher not only has to give himself up, but he also has to give Saris up because she's an alchemist.
If we're weighing lives here, like Saris and Kingfisher versus Everlane, like that's a pretty heavy side, Kingfisher and Saris.
I mean, I'm like, the sacrifice might be warranted. I'm just going to say that out loud. I'm like, I only knew Everlane for like 10 chapters. All right. And Saris is the main character.
She's
so
an alchemist. She's an alchemist.
She's the most powerful alchemist we've ever had. So she's not going anywhere. But for whatever reason, we have to risk everything to save Everlane. So they go back to Kalish. And Saris figures out that now that she can like talk to the Quicksilver and like bargain with it, it actually just wants secrets in exchange for making relics. So she like figures out an actual like strategy for making these relics that she signed herself up for. And the secret that she gives it is that she doesn't actually want to go back to Zilbar and she wants to stay in Uvelia with Kingfisher.
This escalated so quickly.
So she ends up like doing this work, whatever. The healer ends up showing up. Her name's Telena. And she's like, Saris, do you need any help? I know you're just in a battle. And she's like, no, but I actually see those tattoos on your hand. Like, what's that about? I've seen those before. And Telena's like, oh, these are mating marks. And like, me and my husband have them. Like, what do you mean? And Saris is like,
Holy shit.
And she's like, that was a very rare thing that like went away when the gods went away. And there hasn't been a mating bond ever since. And she was like, is it weird that some of them would have like writing on them, like script? And she's like, oh yeah, that means those are god bindings. And like, that's like an even stronger mating bond. And Saris is literally about to pass out on the spot. So she goes to confront Fisher and Fisher's like, okay, I knew. And turns out I've actually known since my mom died.
What?
So we learned that his mom was actually an oracle. And she knew she was going to die at Belacon's hands. So she like wrote him basically like the story of Fisher and like what's going to happen for him. And she wrote to him that he was going to have a mate. And she like drew a picture of her that was like identical to Saris. And she knew that she was going to be Fisher's mate. And so she says that Saris is going to come into his life like a meteor, shake everything up for him. She draws out a picture of Saris and turns out there was one small detail that was missing, that what actually wasn't missing, that was just wrong. She was drawn with fae pointed ears in the drawing, and Saris is not a fae. She's a human. So Fisher had no idea that Saris was going to be the one until he comes out of the pool, sees her in the way that she is, and he's like, oh fuck, that's my mate. And the bond snaps into place at that point. He said that that's why he basically put all of his energy into making sure that she hated him, because he just knew that they were going to be doomed from the start, essentially.
Wait, why does he think they're going to be doomed?
Because he knows he's dying from the Quicksilver.
Okay.
And yeah, so he also explains this now. Like, he's like, the Quicksilver's killing me, Saris. Like, it's not just like living in my body. I am going to at some point be like a feral beast animal because of this Quicksilver, like unrecognizable. And at that point, like, I will be offing myself. And she's like, ooh. And so she is like, I need some space. Like, leave me alone. And we also learned through this that the Osha, the little Osha nickname that she's had, of course, means the butterfly thing. But he explains that it actually means most sacred because these butterflies hatch in this like inhabitable part of their land, and every time they do their hatching, which is like once every handful of centuries, and then once they hatch, it's like the most beautiful thing that anybody could possibly ever see.
Okay, well now it's cute, but at first it was like really rude.
No, it's cute. So they end up deciding that they're gonna like really hatch together a plan for saving Everlane, for trying to save Kingfisher or whatever. Fisher's like, okay, Sarah, I know I kind of sounded suicidal there for a second, but it's fine. And so they end up deciding to go seek out the witches who live in like a complete other area. And they believe that if they're able to bring a witch to them to basically like suck out the vampire's blood from Everlane, that she might survive what's happening to her body right now. So they have a plan. They're like, okay, we're going to go get Everlane. We're going to bring her back here. The witch will cure her. We'll be good. And Fisher is like, Saris, we have one more night until this is going to happen. Like, let's just not fight and let's get it on. And so they go
Of
back to
course, like
Ballard.
every guy, real and fantasy, would say that.
Every single one. Final night. Let's not talk.
Let's not fight, okay? And let's have sex.
Correct. So they go back to the apartment in Ballard and they basically just have like a sex marathon, essentially. Like, this is the part where, if you guys have heard it on Instagram, the audio of Fisher, where he's like, I'm going to introduce you to all seven gods happens. Like, it's a good scene. I'm going to give him that.
Yeah.
But also during this time, Fisher ends up accepting the mating bond. And he's like, if you don't want to, it's fine. But I decided that I was going to because I'm actually in love with you. And she's like, what? Okay. And so he's like, shh, don't say anything back. Leave whatever response you had in your mouth. I don't want to hear it. And so she's like, okay. And so the next morning, wakes up, Fisher's gone, long gone. He has left a note for her. And he's basically like, I went after Everlane so that you guys didn't have to. And please don't come for me. I am long gone. I'm going to drop Everlane through a shadow gate. And once she gets through, like, she's only going to have minutes for you guys to start working on her. So, like, please pay attention. So it's basically a suicide mission because he's going to this place called Gillithry, which is where all of the vampires reside, and also is the location of where this battle occurred that he like disappeared from 100 years ago, which was why Danya was so pissed at him. And so Saris goes back to Kalish and she's like, Fisher's gone. And they're like, what? And Carrion, again, of all people, is like, yo, in this note, he says something about the fact that Everlane's going to be like dropped through this portal. And he was like, when Saris came through her portal, the portal didn't disappear immediately. So does that mean that we have some time maybe to go through these portals the other direction? And they're all like, huh.
Why is he so smart?
Whoa. Like, Ren's in there, Loris in there, like, Telena's in there. I'm like, how did none of these thousands of years old Fae understand that that was a possibility? And Carrion Swift figures it out in like 4 seconds.
Because it actually takes a lot of intelligence to run an underground illegal gambling ring.
So true. So Everlane busts through the portal, through the Shadow Gate, and they're like, shit, like, it's go time. And so Saris, Carrion, and Lorith go through the gate. And as they're going through, Everlane, the only thing she can say, she's like, Saris, Saris. And she's like, the water. And she's like, the what? They are thrown into a massive body of water. Saris and Carrion obviously grew up in a deserted place, so they have no idea how to swim. And so Lorith ends up saving the both of them, like, thank God. And so they come out of this water and end up scaling this like huge obsidian wall. And over the side of this obsidian wall is a massive arena that's filled to the brim with all of these like feeders, vampire, the dead, all of these things, just absolute terror show. And there's also ash falling from the ground. Like, it's a very creepy setup. In the middle of this arena is Kingfisher, and he is there with 3 other people.
Who?
3 other beings. Who? Let me tell you. Malcolm, Madra, and Balakon. Yeah. They're all calling each other like brother and sister, and they reveal that they're the triumvirate, like their little trio, and it's basically because they're human, fae, and vampire. And so they like make up this very powerful combination. And so it's basically revealed that Balakon has been in cahoots with Malcolm for very long. He's been like feeding his armies, he's been like suppressing the fae armies, all of that stuff to essentially like help Malcolm's progress. And so we learned that Fisher was actually bound by an oath to not reveal why he was deserting everyone for 100 years, essentially. And we learned that in Gillithry, the original battle that they went into, is Fisher and his 8 wolves, the Lupopraelia, who went in to defeat all of the feeders and the vampires that were there to essentially like take down this entire city. And it's like 8 people versus like 20,000 soldiers
Yeah.
or something like that. Like it's absurd. And so they're obviously losing. Fisher goes to find Malcolm because he's like, I'm going to kill this guy. And he ends up finding Bellicon instead. And him and Bellicon end up striking a deal where Bellicon's like, hey, let's take this to a coin flip. If it lands leaf side down or leaf side up, Malcolm will call off the horde. He'll leave. He won't hurt another soul. But if it lands fish side up, he will destroy the city and Fisher will have to leave everyone in the city to their deaths. And that would be it. And so Fisher is like, cool, let's do this. And so Bellicon flips the coin, Malcolm catches the coin, and it never hits the ground. And this essentially suspends their bargain in like midair. So they never let the coin fall. And instead, Malcolm ends up finishing the job essentially in this city and like, it is like, my vampires aren't going anywhere. And so now that this coin hasn't hit the ground, Malcolm decides to hide it below Gillifrey and ends up like keeping it suspended. And as long as it's suspended, essentially like Fisher is still bound by this oath that he took to like not say anything or do anything. So Fisher ends up being like, okay, I'm going to go after this coin. And that's when he disappears. And none of the Fae understand why he did that. And so he spends 100 years in a labyrinth that Malcolm created under this city. He builds this arena on top of it. Like all of these like dead people are just like watching Fisher go through this. He spends 100 years going through this labyrinth. And finally, when he gets to the center of the labyrinth where the coin is supposed to be, he ends up spending 8 years looking for it and still cannot find it. And at the end of this 8th year is when the portal opens up and Fisher steps through it. And that's when he found Ceres.
The mental torture that would be being stuck in a labyrinth for 100 years and 8
Truly.
years of searching for something.
Truly. I was like, no wonder this man was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Like everyone was like, Fisher, why are you so feral? I'm like, no wonder why.
It's not the Quicksilver. It's the fact that you were a caged rat.
100%.
That's insane.
It's so crazy. So this whole story gets unveiled. And so he takes his anchor and he ends up like taking Ceres' sword and stabbing it in Bellicon. And basically it's just like all mayhem fucking breaks loose. Like everyone's fighting, whatever. And Fisher's like, to the labyrinth. And so Ceres, Carrion, Lorith, and Fisher start sprinting through the labyrinth. The walls are all moving, everything's shape-shifting. And they, the whole time, are being guided by the fact that Ceres is being called to the Quicksilver because there's a Quicksilver pool at the bottom of this labyrinth. And so Ceres is the one who's like, go right, go left. And the Quicksilver the whole time is like, she's here. Come along. And she's like, okay. And so they like end up running into this like huge like spider-like being, basically this like demon who's just like crawling all over the walls. They end up escaping it. They end up landing in this room filled with coins. Like it's like thousands of coins, a desert of coins. And they're like, Fisher, is this where you spent 8 years of your life? And he's like, yeah.
Crap.
Again, I'm like, no wonder this man was a feral beast.
He was sifting through the pile of coins for 8 years.
He was going coin by coin for 8 years. So the 3 triumvirate psychopaths end up joining them there. And Malcolm's like, good luck finding this thing. There's just no chance you're going to. And Carrion out of nowhere just starts like taunting him. And he's like, look over here. And they're like, Karen, what the fuck are you doing? And Malcolm comes down and he's like, what's your deal? And Carrion's like, I dare you to bite me. I dare you to try and feed from me. And Malcolm's like, starts feeding from Carrion and immediately has like a horrific reaction. Like his skin starts to fall off of him. He's screaming. And Carrion's like, gotcha. Turns out I am Carrion Dianthus. I'm actually the firstborn son of King Dianthus, who was the original person who broke the entire blood oath.
Oh, God.
Way back when. And I've just been hiding in Silvarin this entire time. He was in Silvarin because Kingfisher's dad actually smuggled him away. And that's why Fisher's dad was in Silvarin when all of the portals ended up closing.
Yeah.
So as it turns out, the Dianthus bloodline is actually like poisoned poison to vampires because it was the one that was used to make and unmake the blood curse. So Malcolm like starts falling apart at the seams. Karen's like, ha ha ha. Saris runs away to try and find the coin because they realize it's not actually in that room. And so she's following the Quicksilver again. She ends up finding the coin in the middle of the spider demon that they killed earlier. She's like literally has to reach into his guts and like grabs the coin out of there. And somehow Malcolm like tracks her to where she is, and he's like, "Give me that coin." She's like, "No." And also, you are so gross. Like you don't even have like skin on your body. And he takes the coin from her, and she like semi distracts him as he's just like roughing her up. Like I think he like stabbed her in the guts again. And so she ends up pulling one of her thievery moves and like stabs him with a dagger. And as she does that, she takes the coin back and ends up letting it fall to the ground. Malcolm immediately is eviscerated. He like goes down to the floor. Chris ends up cutting his head off. Like it's a whole deal. And again, she's doing all this while she is literally one breath away from death. I'm like, how? So she is laying there like 99.9% dead. And Fisher finally gets there and he's like, no, she can't die. She's my mate. She can't die. This man, his name is Taladeus. Taladeus? Unclear. He is another vampire that's similar to Malcolm in terms of his like level of power. And Saris is like in and out, but she's hearing Fisher talk to him and he's like, Fisher, I can save her. You know that I can save her. And Fisher's like, okay, fine, do it. And so Taladeus ends up biting Saris and starting the process of turning her into a vampire. Meanwhile, she's still talking to the Quicksilver. The Quicksilver's like, Saris, we need to talk. We need to discuss this with you. And she's like basically in between life and death. And it's like, if you want to live, like you will give us an audience. And she's like, okay. And so she is ripped into the Quicksilver pool. Kingfisher's like, wow, no, where are you going? And she ends up waking up in an entirely different world. And it turns out to be the realm of Zareth, who is the god of chaos. And he ends up telling Saris basically that the like threads of fate ended up telling him that she was going to come into the world as like this very powerful alchemist. And she was going to be Kingfisher's mate, and their powers together were essentially going to be too powerful, where they were going to be able to like unmake worlds. So he tries to tamper with these like threads of fate. Mm-hmm. And that's why Saris was a human. She was actually supposed to be born Fae. And because Zareth ends up getting involved, he makes her human. He puts her in Zilvarn. He's like, her and Kingfisher will literally never cross paths. There's no way. Joke's on him. So he's like, okay, since you guys already found each other, I got it. You have these god bindings, which are essentially like protections for you guys against these other gods. But he was like, now that you are going to be made into this like new thing, essentially, like those things won't really matter, and these other gods will essentially like put more of their attention on you guys. And so he's like, if you want to avoid that, you can become my ward and I will make you into something that has never been made before. And she's like,
not another bargain.
Okay, I will strike this bargain, I suppose. And so she strikes the bargain. She goes back and wakes up to find out that she's actually half vampire, half fae.
She's stuck like as a like ward to this man in this other world.
To the god?
Yeah.
Yeah, she is. But that, I mean, at this point, that's not her most pressing problem. Her most pressing problem is she comes back as something that no one understands. They're like, we've never seen this before. So she's sent back. She wakes up. She's told she's half vampire, half fae. And it tells her that he's had basically been hiding his secrets through the Swift line of family for centuries, basically like waiting for the Quicksilver portals to get opened again. And that's basically all we kind of learn about him. We don't know much about his parents, which Kingfisher is like, I'll tell you more about that later, but I need to hang out with my mate. And when he leaves, she is like, what is happening, Fisher? Like, can I please go home? I'm so tired. And he's like, yeah, we'll talk about that in a couple of days because you're actually about to get sworn in as the queen of the vampires.
Why? Because she killed Malcolm?
Because she killed Malcolm. And he never had an heir. He never dubbed an heir because he literally was so egotistical that he thought that he would never die. And so Saris is now next in line to lead all of the vampires.
What a nasty...
And that's how we end.
What a nasty army to lead. Wow.
So that's where Quicksilver leaves off. Saris is part Fae, part vampire. Fisher's probably off on some sort of self-sacrificing mission afterwards. And the realms are one bad decision from collapse.
That was an absolute wild ride. And so now we have to say, like, did this stand up over time? In the reread 1 year later, do we still love it as much as we did?
That's right, because BookTok Tested isn't just about remembering what happened. It's asking about it's asking if it's worth the hype.
We are going to break down what still worked, what didn't, and who we'd actually recommend this book to. Hang on.
All right, let's start with our overall impressions and then we'll get into the good stuff because there's a lot to discuss. So for me, on the second time around, I do understand the hype. Like, I do actually really get it because this was giving a lot of elements of ACOTAR. I felt like there were some kind of vibes of Fourth Wing. Like, we talked about it throughout. Like, all of these kind of standard tropes that you see throughout the genre were very much present in this book. And then you pair that with the fact that Kingfisher was unbelievably attractive. It's just a recipe for success. I get it.
100%. I think I remember reading this like after Fourth Wing, and I was just like so hungry for like a shadow daddy and like all of the like nostalgic things that I got from ACOTAR, Throne of Glass, like all those popular romantasy books that I was like, of course I'm gonna eat this up. But the second time around, like when we have been literally drowned with romantasy books in the last year, I'm like, this is a little copy paste.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the big unique things to me about this book on the reread now is the magic system. Like, I think the Quicksilver was very unique. And I think like the fact that it was kind of tied to Saris being an alchemist and like that being really the main way that they can like work through things. I thought that was really interesting.
That's true.
I did love Fisher. Like, he's one of my top book boyfriends. We've said that. Like, I love him. There's no way around it.
I think
so like he was big for me.
I totally agree with you about Kingfisher, and I think that he is actually a big reason why I would recommend it to like a certain group of people.
Yeah, agreed. I think after having read so much more of this genre, though, this book feels more like junk food romantasy, which might sound shitty.
No, I think it's not, because junk food has its like time and place. Like when I have had a long week after work and I want to sit on my couch Friday night and like binge like pizza and chocolate, like I want to be reading this book.
Right, exactly. Like, it's not a complicated magic system. It's not complicated writing. Like, the writing is very straightforward. Like, if someone is using double exclamation points in their writing, like, I'm like, I'm good. Like, I don't have to pay that much attention. And like, the characters are great. Like, obviously we love Fisher. I loved Carrion. He was also a big bright spot here for me. And like the battle scenes weren't that crazy or long or like I don't know. It just felt like something where it's like you could easily binge this in like a week and then walk away from it and be totally fine.
Yeah, 100%. You're not going to get a book hangover from this, but you're going to enjoy the ride. And I think specifically on the reread, I was so distracted by Kingfisher in my first go around. The second go around, I loved Carrion and I loved Renfis. I was like, you two, and like Lorith, I was like, you guys are great side characters. And so I did appreciate them more in the reread. So I do think that is a plus if you're trying to reread before Brimstone, because Carrion might have a big story in Brimstone.
Yeah, for sure. I do think, though, for people who have read it and are going to read Brimstone, I don't know that you would necessarily need to reread this. I think that you could maybe read the last, 30% of this book and be like, okay, I'm good.
I think that this book could have been half the size, and I really want romantasy authors to listen to me when I say this. I think a lot of your books could have been half this size, and my TBR would be much smaller because I would have more time to read them all. The world building, up front, taking about 50% of the book, and the back and forth library forge trips needed to be consolidated.
No, but I do totally agree with you. I think a lot of times, like, we over world build sometimes in these books and then they just get way too long. Like, romantasy books do not need to be this long all the time. And I think that's why I love Rachel Gillig so much
Mm,
because all of her books are, I feel like, under 500 pages,
an
which to me,
appropriate
and they're
size.
still amazing stories. And she's still able to build these, like, beautiful, sweeping worlds and stories and characters, but like, it's still an appropriate size.
100%. And I haven't looked up how long Brimstone is, but like maybe Callie Hart's new publisher told her to chill.
No.
I do want to say one thing. So this is the new cover of the book. So it's where it says like Callie Hart Quicksilver with the Quicksilver drips going down it. And
Yep,
she got a lot of shit when this first came out. Everybody was like, "Where is Kingfisher's face? How could you remove the hottest man alive from the front of your book?" And
I agree.
having this in my hands and looking at it though, like this is like a sexy book. Like
It
all
is a
black
sexy book.
with the drips going down it and it has like holographics on it. It's a sexy
Agreed.
book.
It's cool. It looks the Kingfisher version definitely looked like first edition
Fanfic.
self-published fanfic. Like I get why she went this direction and I love it, truly. But it was fun to have the visual of Kingfisher like right at the front.
Yeah, but this is gonna look really nice on my shelf.
Agreed. Right next to Brimstone.
Yep.
So there you go. Okay, so I think it's time for the final question. Do we think that Quicksilver passed the BookTok Tested test?
I have to say it almost didn't for me. I almost DNF'd this book 3 times because I couldn't get through the first 30%. But after
Yeah.
getting through it, I appreciated it for what it is. Like you said, the junk food of romantasy, something that like cures our cravings. And so I think it stood up.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think too, like we aren't as much of the like Easter egg theorizers. I think if you are one of those readers, then you actually would really like this because there are so many random plot holes that were left open, for example, and like random Easter eggs that she throws in at the beginning and throughout, where you're like, huh, what does that relate to? And she like closes the loop on some of them, but there's a lot of kind of like iterating that you can do on imagining like what's going to happen throughout the rest of the series. So I do think that despite this being maybe a junk food book for us, like this might be very close to like a fourth wing ACOTAR for a lot of people too.
But
Hmm.
when we're talking about BookTok Tested, we're talking about like readers just in it for the
Yeah.
fun. We actually
Yes.
did recommend this to one of our friends that's not even on BookTok who just like really loves smut. Like not even like romantasy smut, just like outside of that. And she was eating Kingfisher. So
Oh yeah.
I do think it's BookTok Tested. Approved.
Yeah, I think it's approved. I think it's approved with caveats. Like, I do think that, like, you have to know what you're going in with, and it's not going to be something for, like, Pulitzer Prize writing or maybe even, like, world building and pacing that you would enjoy, but, like, you're going to have a good time. It's guaranteed. And if you listen to it on audio, Kingfisher's voice, Anthony Palmini, delivers.
Also, Renfis's voice, he's like Scottish, and he was
Yeah.
also very hot.
Yeah, they're all like smoky and very deep and attractive. I don't know. That was great for me. So what would you say in terms of your final rating then for this?
This sounds bad, but it really isn't. But like, I would give it a 3.5, and I think that's perfectly okay.
I think so. That was going to be my exact rating too. I was maybe even going to go with the 3, honestly.
Yeah.
Like,
It
I
is
just
like,
think that this is a good average book for me. Like, it's not something where I am constantly thinking about Quicksilver. I might constantly be thinking about Kingfisher, but that's for different reasons.
and I think that I haven't been like waiting for Brimstone to come out, but when it does,
Right.
I'm excited to see the rest of their stories.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree.
Where
So I
I'm
think this.
like huffing and puffing down Sarah J. Mass's neck to figure out what happens in ACOTAR 6.
I am literally foaming at the mouth for that. I am not
Kingfisher
yet
without
foaming.
the pendant.
We did say that he's a grittier Rhysand, though.
Yeah, he's better than Rhysand. I will give
He is.
you that. He is better than
He
Rhysand.
is. Because, like, even when he was, like, simpy over Saris, I was like, you're still even hotter than Rhysand, honestly.
Yeah, 100%.
Which never really thought I would be able to say that. But here I am,
Tale is all
eating
the
my
same.
words. So we'll call this BookTok Tested. We'll give it a 3.5 stars. I think in terms of book hangover, when I first read this, was not super high. Like, I actually really binged it when I first read it.
Yeah.
Second time around, not high, very low,
Yeah,
I would
same.
say. Like, I was kind of just ready to be done.
Yeah, like, I'm excited to start my new book tonight.
Yeah, correct. Recommendability. I think I would recommend this to someone who you've read beyond ACOTAR and Fourth Wing. Maybe you've read like Serpents and Wings of the Night. Maybe you've read From Blood and Ash. Like you've read kind of the staples within the genre. Then I would say to read something like this. Like if you're like, I need a new romantasy, like I think that this would be a good one to pick up.
If you're Googling books like Fourth Wing, it's a good book to pick up.
Yes. So I do think if you are that person, you would really enjoy this. I think if you are someone who reads a lot of romantasy, you've blown past all the staples, and you are really tired of kind of the standard tropes and like you don't want the junk food book, like you want something that you can really sink your teeth into, this is probably not something that I would get into.
Same.
Same.
I'm trying to say
Love
this
when you
time.
agree with me. Okay, so that's it for BookTok Tested on Quicksilver. If you want to see a minute-by-minute recap, our ratings, anything like that, head to our Instagram, our YouTube, follow us a lot, or follow along there, subscribe, like, comment, all of the things. And also, please leave us feedback if you have anything that you would like for us to test out next. If you have things that you would like for us to stay away from, we would definitely like to hear that. But as for now, the lab is closed on Quicksilver.
I put my beakers away and put her back on the shelf.
And if you haven't, please drop us a review on wherever you're listening to this podcast. We would very, very much appreciate it. And thank you for listening. So until next time, bring your blankets, bring your book boyfriends, and we'll see you then.
See ya.